You are listening to a new episode of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name is John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast. This week, we're looking at 3 of the groovinest games ever for the PS2 in this week's Triple Threat Throwdown.
Why did you choose groovinest over grooviest?
I don't know, man. Groovinest is a better word.
Is it even a word?
It is now.
Okay. Odd, but good intro. Yeah, so I don't know if this Triple Threat Showdown's coming out before the other. I guess we'll figure that out. I'm going to guess we already did one, right? For like a future episode, and this is a future episode, so we're getting into time paradoxes here. So yeah, you probably already heard our other, and this is the new one. Yeah.
So either way, it's a new thing.
It's a new thing, or new-ish thing, depending on when you listen to it. So this week we looked at 3 games on the PlayStation 2, or specifically rhythm-based games, put them against each other to see which one on the Mario Kart podium is the number one out of them all. I already know my number one. I'm sure you do as well, and we probably agree with it. But I hope you have the wiki open for this first one, because I did not get to read the wiki on this one.
Yes, I do. So, Gitaroo Man. This is...
Or Gitaroo Man, based on who's talking in the game.
Or Gitaroo Man.
Yeah.
Developed by Innis, published by Koei and THQ in Europe, directed by Yukio Shimomura. It is originally released in the US in February of 2002. It's a rhythm game. This is a really interesting title. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going on in it that may be kind of going over, the common man's head. But for anybody who is, there for that weird niche kind of older PlayStation Japanese title, like this is like right up in there. It's got these goofy cutscenes. It's got these very like weird rendered 3D models that like almost kind of look toy-like. It's its own thing going on, and it's pretty interesting. So story is about a boy U1, and he is
literally U-1.
Yeah. He's a descendant of the legendary Gitaroo bloodline,
or Elon Musk, because of a child's name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he gets his guitar from his talking dog, and he fights a devil, and he fights some aliens, and it's a wacky trip. But it's definitely a good one. Like, I don't know about you, I've heard of Gitaroo Man long ago. Like, this was like a game that I must have read about in Game Informer or something. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't probably too active in buying a whole bunch of stuff in 2002. I didn't have a whole lot of allowance money back then, so this was one that flew under my radar. But in the realm of rhythm games, this is one that I've always heard very good things about, and people that are very into rhythm games get very excited about. And after playing it, I think I really understand why.
So my general experience with rhythm games years ago in this kind of genre of rhythm game was Bust a Groove, and it was one of my all-time favorites. My brother and I used to play it all the time. I need to get new copies of it, actually, because I don't have any now, and they're expensive as all hell too. But looking at this game, I really didn't have any, it was one of those things that the title itself stood out to me, and that's why I knew about it. And seeing some of the colorations and gameplay, right? Like, there was nothing else really stood out to me other than that as a reason for me to even find interest in this. And so, funny enough, this game is what actually sparked the great gaming pickup of 2020.
Yeah.
That I had, where it was just like thousands upon thousands of dollars in games that I picked up from this guy. And Gitaroo Man was the game, and it was in a PS2 collection, and the guy wanted $300, and so everything totaled out to about $400. And I was like, okay, I'll get Gitaroo Man because I really want it. I'll sell the rest and I'll be good to go. And that was where it was the old age-old question of, hey, do you have anything else that you're selling? And then it just blew up from there to the point where I'm like, Ryan, you're not going to believe
you made
this
like
shit
3 trips to that guy's house.
It was like 5. It was ridiculous, dude. Like, and there's still stuff, like I was going through, I'm doing a game audit, or I when this episode comes out, I'll probably have completed a game on it. But I was looking at all these Japanese games I picked up from him. And dude, the Japanese games are like in the hundreds. Some of these titles, like it's ridiculous what they go for. So, God, there's more games I could have bought. Like I turned down a lot of Xbox games because they were games I didn't think that I wanted. Now I kind of wish I just would have bought them. Yeah, different tune. Like I wish I would have got them all.
You made some other collector very happy.
I guess. I mean, I gave him all the scraps I didn't want. So there was some interesting games in there. Some I already had, some I didn't, but they just weren't like higher value titles.
They weren't Gitaroo Man.
They weren't Gitaroo Man, yeah. So that was kind of how I got this game. And dude, playing this game was amazing. Like it was so much fun diving into it. I love the controls of this. Like at first I was super confused, but for those listening, and geez, I didn't do my whole spiel on where they can hear us. We'll do it right after this. You pretty much hold the left analog stick in there's several manners in which the game plays. You have like a charge up mode where you play your guitar to charge up your health for battle against the enemy you're going to be fighting. And then you enter the battle mode, and then it's pretty much hitting buttons like the cross, circle, square, and triangle. And so you hit those buttons to dodge attacks. And then you deal damage to the enemy with your guitar, which involves typically pressing an analog stick in the direction of a line of music where you might hit X, you hold it, and you just kind of follow along with the analog stick via a line and a triangle, and it allows you to kind of play the different guitar tunes and such. And then it goes back and forth, obviously, between battle and attacks until you beat the enemy. But it's super cool because like the tunes themselves are actually pretty catchy as you're playing it. Like you're tapping your foot as you're playing. And it's just there's this crazy amount of color happening all around. Like when we were battling the spaceship keyboard type creature, it was crazy. There was so much crap going on screen. And you're just so in tune with what's happening. And it's...
when you feel that moment, like you ride that moment, and it feels good when you're hitting it.
Exactly. And there is multiplayer, so it's cool. So as you unlock, or as you beat the story mode, you unlock more songs to be able to do multiplayer, which is pretty cool to go head to head. So I did like that piece too. I would say as far as rhythm games are concerned, it was very easy to control this one once we got used to the analog directional aspect and the wiggle that you need for like reverb on the guitar. I thought that the controls were very solid. Like there wasn't any sort of delay. It wasn't like when we played PaRappa the Rapper 1, where it was just difficult as all hell to passing. So you had to be like absolutely spot on perfect. You didn't have to with this. And that was good. It had the okay, miss, good, and great ratings. As you hit things, it gave you your percentages afterwards, like solid. And there's a story to it. Like, as you mentioned, like you're this kid that has this lineage of Gitaroo Men, and as we were kind of completing, there was like this organization that's talking about the Gitaroo Men and how like you're the last one, and you're walking with your dog. I forget the dog's name offhand, but you're walking with him through a forest, and you get like, there's this guy that kind of comes out and he starts speaking to you. Yeah. Oh, Puma. Yeah. And so you're just randomly in the forest, and this guy's about to have a guitar battle with you, and you're like, all right, we're good. We're going to move on to the next game. But I absolutely see myself picking this game back up to beat it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so different in the gameplay. I like how it has a structure to it that's outside of just notes to a song. Like your timing, obviously, to do notes to a song, but within an attack and defense phase, you have a life bar. It's also very different in that it has both like, there's the section where you're doing kind of like button sliding into the center of the screen. You got to hit it at the right time, but then you're also doing the tracking with the arrow to follow the path around, and you've got to hug those turns just right, because if your needle falls out, you biff the whole note.
And you take damage actually when you do that.
Yeah, and then it eventually gets to where, you do a little wah, like in your guitar, and so you've got to like wiggle it a little bit.
Just right too. Like if you don't do it, you miss. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's fun, and it's different. Like I don't know why this didn't catch on more or become more of like a style that people got into. I guess maybe the weirdness of it pushed people away at the time, because like DDR is very straightforward game. Like even though there's like dancing and stuff going on, that's all a part of that. But like being a superhero guitar guy, fighting weird aliens and all the like, I feel like there's so much lost in translation in these games where you would assume that contextually it's going to mean more. And it feels very alive, the world. Like, we didn't see a whole lot of it, but it was a very realized concept. Like, so many games like this will build the mechanics and then, you know, everything else is just kind of slapdash on top, and it doesn't need to really have any context. But, like, you know, it was like his town and the people around and everything felt like of a very directioned mindset.
Yeah. And, you know, I think overall review for me on this, looking at it, the reception was around an 8.5 out of 10 on this game. I think we mentioned it was released in 2002. I would honestly put this at a 9 or a 10, given the quality of game and what we experienced. Like before Gitaroo Man, or after Gitaroo Man, of course, came, you know, Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think this right here might have been, in a sense, it might have been what kind of, you know, got that to be a thing, right? Like the guitar-based rhythm games.
When did Guitar Hero come out?
2005, I think. So it came out several years afterwards. Yeah. So looking at brass tacks here, complete in box on this game is 110.86. It peaked at 157.90 in April of this year. A loose copy will run you at 88.45 right now. It peaked at 92.93 in July of last year. And then actually it was April 2022 this year at the peak for the complete in box. I think I mentioned that. And right now it looks to be kind of, I would say it's trending down in a sense, given where it was at its peaks in the last year or two. But, you know, all of that said, when you look at games like this, so Bust a Groove, Guitar Hero, you have things like Mad Maestro that are out there that are much cheaper. You know, 110 for a very unique game, I don't think is a bad deal for PlayStation 2, given the price of many PlayStation 2 games. I think this is actually just right when you look at the scale of how expensive PS2 games have gotten in the last few years. And given the obscurity of this title, I think 110 is actually a good price to... It's obviously would have been better for you to do it before COVID because it was a better price. I think it was like 40 or 50 then. But it's still worth, I think, picking up at 110 if you really want a complete in-box copy. There is the option of a PSP version, which I think you had mentioned was much cheaper.
I was going to bring that up. So PSP version of this, $51.85 complete in box, $27.99 loose.
Yeah.
And you can pull off buying loose PSP games. Like, I feel more comfortable with that than buying just a regular loose disc.
Yeah, so you know, you got a few entry points here. $27 for a loose copy on a PSP, $57 for complete in box. It's always a good route to go, especially if it's the same game. That's always good to go with. But you know, dude, I'm kind of sold on a complete in box version of this.
I will say,
110.
This game, primo box art.
Oh yeah,
good looking
sure.
box art on this game, and you know, I know that really only means so much, but in my mind, like, if you are going to pick up like a high price target game, you know, this is a fun one. It's a good looking one. You know, it
is held up graphically.
It's one that people don't have. You know, a lot of people don't have this one, and you can play it with a bunch of other people. I think this is definitely a good collector game.
I think you could actually play with up to 4 players.
Yeah, it has the multi-tap.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one that I think is normally complete in box games like this that are like above $60. I'm like, hesitant on. This is one you should pick up for sure. So I would say just right.
Just right?
That's what I'm thinking.
All right.
Before we continue on, you can find this episode of the Game Deflators Podcast on the app you're listening to right now, but you can also interact with us on social media at Game Deflators on Twitter, at The Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook. TheGameDeflators.com is our out-of-date website. It might be up to date when this episode's out. We'll see. But that's where you can find us. Leave us a 5-star review, if not more. Next game, PaRappa the Rapper 2.
I gotta believe that we eventually were going to cover this game.
Yeah, I figured we were at some point. We got to get the second version.
We should have had Danny here.
Oh, dude, we should have. Yeah.
He lives in Utah.
Yeah, that's right. So
we had so much fun the first time when we played the first game, and not because we all thought it was awesome, but just because we had such a hard time with it, and we had to hear the songs over and over and over again. PaRappa the Rapper 2, I can say I think it was much better. We actually were able to get through the levels. I thought the music was way better. Visually, it's very much the same game.
Well, let's dive into the development and stuff.
Oh,
here
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
So we got Nana On Shah as the developer. It was published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It was designed by Masaya Matsura. It was released in also 2002 as a rhythm-based game, and it had a reception of a 6 out of 8. So, story-wise, I assume you have the wiki up, but I think I can kind of go on memory on this one. It starts out with you are feeling super depressed because you are sitting in your home with 100 years worth of ramen noodles that you have won, or really a cup of noodles is what he's got, and everything is noodle. There's noodle dishes everywhere. And it was so great when you first started with these noodles, and now you're sick of noodles, and everything you see is noodle. So he's sitting back at home, and his girlfriend comes in. He's like, oh, this is the greatest thing that's happened to me. I think her name was Sunny, and she's basically a flower. So a flower and a dog, the weirdest thing. So I don't know, maybe pees on her. So you're sitting at this table, and she serves him noodles, and he's like, what the heck? Like, I've eaten all these noodles, and I don't want to eat any more noodles. And she's like, you're such a baby. And he kind of like leaves the house. So he gets super triggered every time somebody says baby moving forward, that it kind of progresses into the game to where when you go into your first rap battle, you hear the word baby, and he just gets triggered again. But that being said, we walk into the PaRappa burger joint, which the burgers have now been transformed into, guess what? Noodles. So, of course, the spirit of the PaRappa burger joint comes out to teach everyone how to make noodles via rap. Or not noodles, sorry,
I think it
burgers.
was beard burgers.
Beard burgers via rap. And you rap to make burgers. And so that's our first one. And I will say, to your point, this was much better.
It was catchy.
Yeah.
Not that the music in the first one wasn't catchy, but I dug it. Like, I liked the, flipping the burgers and doing the stuff. It was like, it's one of those games where, unlike with Gitaroo Man, it's more of an anticipation because you're seeing what you're going to do and then having to execute it back time and time again.
You said execute.
The timing is weird because you're not necessarily timing like starting, like you have to kind of time how long he's going to say the word, and you have to kind of figure out like, okay, where are like the dips between the words that you're saying so that you can get the timing to all line up right. And it's very easy to be too early or be too late. And the game is, it says that it makes it easier by simplifying it, but it just feels so condescending because it's like getting worse. And then the whole screen becomes like it looks like they're trying to like dust mop around the edges of the screen. There's like all these little tentacles. I guess they're noodles. Yeah. Probably enclosing around the screen. And then if you get worse again, like the beat just becomes so simple and you're just saying like one really boring, dry word as opposed to having like any emphasis around it. And so you're really incentivized to do better because it sounds way better when you're doing better. Gitaroo Man had like, if you would miss the beat, like it would stop doing the like for the guitar part, but the rest of the music didn't change at all.
Yeah, this one, I was reading in advance that one of the things they did was they kind of cut it down to where, like you said, if you're getting worse, it simplifies it and it makes it to where you can kind of pick back up and it's easier, and then it gets more difficult to the point where it needs to be, which is kind of nice because like the first one, if you screwed up, you screwed up, and you could go through an entire song and still fail.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucked, whereas this one just allows you to progress, and if you fail, you fail, and you keep going. But it doesn't say, just keep going through the whole song, hear the whole thing, waste all your time, and then we're going to fail you at the end.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the approach there in comparison. The other part, too, is we had Chop Master Onion, or Onion Master, I forget his name. But he made an appearance as basically a Kung Fu love guru. Yeah, Kung Fu love guru. That's what it was.
Something like that.
The whole song is about LOVE, which gave me like shades of It Takes Two all of a sudden. Like randomly I was watching, I'm like, this is It Takes Two.
Because it also had some Honey I Shrunk the Kidsness going on in that same scene.
That's what it was. Yeah. So PaRapper's dad and I guess his scientist he's with, they so stupid. They have a remote and he's like, press the green button, and he presses it and it opens up a cat washer, like literally like a steam pot that has a cat that comes out of it. He's like, no, the greener button. And so there's like literally 3 green buttons, and he presses it and it turns on like something else. And he's like, no, the greener button, but square greener button. And so he presses that and it shrinks him. And he's like, well, I cut some corners, but these cup of noodles I have in my hand are fantastic. It's like, I don't care about the noodles. Like, you just shrunk us. How do we get back up? And a remote's at the very top. And somehow it ends up being like a Chop Chop Master Onion love song. So it was kind of fun to play that. And you're right. Like, as you're progressing, he's like, nope, getting worse.
Yeah.
Getting better. And it just kind of tells you like, okay, you're doing what you need to do, which is pretty cool. So, you know, as far as 1 and 2 are concerned, this is by far the more superior version, not even because it's on PS2 and the graphics are better or the music's better. I just think that they made severe improvements, you know, or necessary improvements really over the first one and maybe even the second one because we haven't played that, that really just kind of made this one stand out for me in comparison.
Yeah, I think that whatever our problem with the first one, just not being immediately present in this one made it so much better of an experience that, you know, I really appreciate, I guess just the level of slack they cut you. Like sometimes these games, you know, rhythm games are about being precise, but like PaRappa the Rapper is not a game that I think that I would ever be like challenging myself with as far as a rhythm game. So I think their ability to have a light touch with it is a lot better than getting frustrated on one song indefinite. And I think, was there multiplayer in the first game? I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
Or if there was, we might not have done it.
This one has multiplayer, but we didn't get to that.
We didn't do it, but at least it's there, you know. So that would be another, you know, there's more there if it wasn't there in the first one. I think it's interesting how, you know, this continues the story, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know, we find out not only is he PaRappa the Rapper, but he lives in PaRappa.
Dude, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I feel like an idiot. I don't know if that was mentioned in the first game or not, but the fact that he's PaRappa the Rapper and he's from PaRappa just kind of was mind-blowing for me when it was done. So
I don't know. This also has that really weird style to it. You know, this was another I think all 3 of the games today have a very artistic direction, and I think that lends itself to all music games. I think music games are often very, you know, out there with their style because, you know, those visuals are the only thing really associating you to like any of the character or anything, because you don't have direct control over anything. Everything's very indirect because it's just timing and pushing buttons.
Yeah, and so brass tacks on this one, we're looking at $53.79 for a complete in-box copy. As of right now, it peaked at $66.97 in May of 2021. It's trending up right now. A loose copy right now would run you about $40. It's peaking at $49.99 in February of 2022, and that is holding its current rate of growth. You know, I'm a little hesitant on this one because you're right, it is unique, but there's only like really one Gitaroo Man. Yeah, you have it on PSP, but like there's not a Gitaroo Man 1, Gitaroo Man 2, Gitaroo Man, like, I don't know, his dog's version. Like they have the version of like Jammy Lammy or whatever it's called.
Jammy Lammy.
So, you know, I'm hesitant to say like just right on this, even though it's unique, because I think this game was a little more well known, given that when you kind of look at Gitaroo Man as a fixture in Sony and then PaRappa the Rapper, PaRappa was actually like an iconic
in that Sony fighting game.
Yeah, he was an iconic character. Like that's somebody you knew about. Like how many people growing up with a PS2 knew who PaRappa was compared to Gitaroo Man?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like, so I think, you know, when you kind of look at it on that level, it's not as unique as Gitaroo Man in terms of the character and what you're playing. So I do think personally, I think it's inflated at $53.79. You know, it's an okay rhythm game, but there's still a level of, you know, needing perfection to kind of do better with the rhythm. Whereas like Gitaroo Man have the multiple grades kind of similar to a DDR that make it a little bit less challenging, but also a little more fun, I feel. So yeah, I'm going to have to say this one is inflated, but it's still good. So, I mean, if you got the money to throw around, like by all means, like pick it up. It's a cool piece. It's a cool part of like PS2 history in a sense, as well. But I would say it's inflated.
I've got to say, John, again, great box art.
Yeah, that's fantastic box art.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Well, the North America PS2 one's different. That's Japanese version, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
The PS2 one is...
Oh, that's the European cover art.
Yeah, which is actually pretty badass. But the PS2 version is not that great.
Let's see here.
Yeah, look up North America PaRappa 2, and you're going to be very disappointed. And even the disc is not as cool. Like, at least the Chop Chop Onion Masters on the, disc of the PlayStation 1 version. Did you find it? By the way, so looking at Gitaroo Man...
My phone does not want to spell PaRappa.
So just to go back to Gitaroo Man really quick, I looked at it on howlongtobeat.com. Again, warning, not a porno site. And it is like 3.5 hours, I think, on that one. So I might pick that one up to play it, see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely not as good on the North American one. And taking a look at it, you can buy the PAL one for a little bit cheaper. PAL one's like $2 cheaper for the complete in box.
That's good stuff. All right. Our next game here is Space Channel 5. I happen to have the special edition on the PlayStation 2 because I think it's the only edition on the PS2.
Yes,
for North America specifically. This was developed by United Game Artists, published by Sega. It was directed by Takashi Yuda. It was released in 2003 of November of 2003. It is a music game and a reception of 7.5-ish. So a little history on this game. Back when it was released on the Dreamcast, the ask from Sega to Takashi was to create a game that would appeal to predominantly women, actually. And so... what he ended up doing was, I think, a survey, actually, with different gamers to see what they liked. And he found out that a lot of women actually liked puzzle-based games, and they did like rhythm. And then you had guys that liked a specific genre of games as well, like shooting and whatnot, and level progression. And so what he ended up doing is mashing the two together to create Space Channel 5. And the cool thing as well with like her dress, for example, is like the orange color they have for Ooh La La is orange because that was the direction Sega was wanting to go with the Dreamcast logo and all that. So they wanted that coloration to kind of be within
like
the
Mario
game.
Red.
Yeah.
They wanted Dreamcast orange.
Pretty much.
Xbox green.
Even though they already had Sonic Blue, they had to go with, Dreamcast orange with a new character who people weren't familiar with, which I think also kind of helps spell to the end of the Dreamcast as well. This change in direction and what they were looking to accomplish. If they would have just kind of stuck with what they had, I do wonder how history would have been. But overall, I mean, you play as this character, Ooh La La, who is a reporter for Space Channel 5, and you're kind of making your way through on the site, basically, of this alien attack that's occurred, and they're abducting humans. And your goal is to match their dancing and shoot the aliens with your laser gun. And it's unlike the other two rhythm games, whereas, with Gitaroo Man, you have you're holding the buttons and playing guitar, and you have your active attacks, and the buttons are flying on screen.
Everything's coming at you.
Yes, exactly. And everything's coming at you, whereas like PaRappa the Rapper, you are actively pressing as you go through a bar. This one is you're basically trying to remember the patterns that you were provided. So it kind of reminds me of like Donkey Kong Country 3 when I had to do the banana birds, and it was like blue, yellow, blue, red, green, yellow, blue, and you had to remember that pattern.
Simon Says.
Yeah, basically. Whereas this is...
With rhythm.
Yeah, with rhythm, this is if it's up, down, left, right, X, or if in their case kick, you had to go up, down, left, right, kick, right? And you had to match it exactly. And I probably didn't even match it just now, my own damn pattern. And it could even be like up, down, down. And you have to match exactly like that. And if you mess up, there's like very little forgiveness. Like,
because you like have like a flinch and then you're not reacting, because like as soon as you screw up, you're not hitting the next one in time either. So it's very impossible to recover. And unlike in PaRappa, where you had like the guy does it and then you do it and you see what both of the inputs are. There's no visualization. It's just the aliens appear on that side of the screen, do the action, and say the words as they happen. So you'll see the aliens pop in. They'll be like, left, shoot, right, shoot. And then it cuts back to you and you have to do left, shoot, right, shoot. Exactly like that. But there's no on-screen directions or anything. There's no timing gauge. There's no visualization at all to give you any idea. It's purely just hitting the buttons with the timing exactly as you were just told to do. And it leaves...
Well, you have to, like... It's truly a memorization aspect as well, which I think is kind of the puzzle component that they're talking about. But it's not a fun puzzle.
Is memory a puzzle?
Yeah, you have memory games that I would consider puzzles. Like the matching, like the memory, like you put down the squares, or
isn't a puzzle something that you figure out and
you have
like
to
something
figure,
you memorize is like,
well, you have to figure it out. Like that's what makes it a puzzle, right? Like there's a challenge aspect to it, and there is an issue. Like you
but
don't
if you
know
memorize a puzzle, you don't go back and do it again. Like once you've done a puzzle once, you've kind of unlocked the secret that it held.
Puzzle has different terminologies, right? Like Portal I would consider it a puzzle-based game. Portal. It's not like jigsaw puzzle. That's why it's called a jigsaw puzzle, because you use a jigsaw to make the puzzle pieces.
There's nothing worth revisiting about just pushing directions and hitting one or two different buttons.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not got...
It's a memory puzzle is what it kind of comes down to.
The music's decent. I like me some horns. I like me some big band swing, and that's kind of where they drew a lot of the inspiration from this. I think that I don't know. Honestly, it doesn't look great. I don't know if it looked better on Dreamcast, but it's not a great looking game, and the gameplay is just so very dry. Like I would have been very disappointed to get this game and be like, wow, that's the depth of this game.
Yeah, it's not a very deep game in what we experienced. I mean, we do come across Pudding, another reporter, and you have to do like a dance battle with her. But
it's just the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's just pushing the directions and hitting X or circle. And did it bug you too? The aliens sounded like they were saying kiss every time they appeared.
It sounded to me like they were saying kick, but then the reporter was like, "Oh, they're going to say something else.
They're going to say shoot
or something." I'm like, "That I don't know what's going on."
That's
like,
not
so
the
weird.
word they're saying.
Yeah,
the aliens look like very, very like stretched out.
They look like gummy bears almost.
They look like stretched out of what's the game with the sus guys? In space.
I don't remember. I don't play that game.
Yeah. God, it's so popular. We should know the name of
this. We should know it.
Among Us.
Among Us, yeah. It's
they look like stretched out Among Us guys.
Or like what's it called? Gumby? Gumby, like multicolored Gumbies that are
Gumungus.
So stupid. Yeah, I mean, I get you. It's a game. It's an interesting game. You know, what's really cool about this is it was released in 2003. I don't remember when the Dreamcast was released, but it kind of shows you the failure of the Dreamcast and how quick it was. The fact that this was supposed to be like a premiere, Dreamcast exclusive title, like came out on the console, was supposed to help drive console sales and be this new vision, and it's on PS2 several years later. So it's cool.
I like the Jetsons future aesthetic
that
they've got going on. I like that kind of era of, and if they're relating it to like the big band music and stuff, I mean that's kind of like the Jetsons was like that future 50s kind of setting.
We should bring up a couple things though. So you have like a viewership meter in the bottom corner as well that tells you like a percentage of viewers for the space station that are actively watching, and it starts you at, I think, 15%. And you also have a posse that travels around with you as well, and you pick them up as you kind of rescue them. Ryan screwed up against Puddin so bad that she took like 8 of his people and left them with one.
All our posse and all our viewers.
You're just like sadly dancing down the side of this like building with one person next to you. It's like my one follower.
Yeah,
like,
when you were playing and you had like the photographer dudes following you, like everybody looked like they were walking and having like, yeah, we're gonna go talk to some aliens and dance at them. And my people were like, oh no, we just lost everything. We're gonna die.
What happened? Like, this isn't what we were envisioning when we started following you all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting. So brass tacks, 37.88 for complete in box copy. That peaked at 39.36 in June of 2022. It's trending down, rightfully so. Loose copy is going to be 14.84. That peaked at 27.45 and also, well, I guess not also, but February 2022. It's holding its place right now. I think this is inflated. Certainly think it's inflated. I think if you found this loose for $5 to $10, okay, cool, great game to pick up. For that.
What are you going to do with it? You're not going to play it. You're not going to sell it.
I don't know, $5, $10. Well, I mean, you could sell if you found it for $5 to $10.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So $5 to $10 would be a good pickup price for this. I think that's what it's worth. In fact, I paid $5 for this game when I worked at the game shop. That's what I paid for it. And I was happy to pay it because it was $5. And if you look at my investment over 10 years,
$5 in pre-COVID money.
I've had 6 times growth on this game in 10 years. Look at that. So let's talk first, second, third. I think based on the reaction,
should we talk comparisons between the games first a little bit more?
I mean, we kind of have.
So, I mean, in my mind, all 3 of these games, they all came out right around the same time, like within a year of each other. And they all went in very different directions, but very similar, baselines. Like they're all rhythm games, but one of them is purely memorization. I mean, it's not like the button inputs between PaRappa and this game are very different. And it's not like they're both, you see somebody tell you what exactly inputs you need to do in the timing, and then you repeat and do it yourself. But having that visual aid and having actual words that aren't just directions, makes it an experience. Like just saying, left, right, left to a beat isn't a song. But making the words and the timing of those be a song. And then Gitaroo Man doesn't even really
there's no lyrics, but it's music.
There were lyrics.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right.
There were lyrics. But I mean, you're playing along to the music part.
Yeah.
You're not really playing along to the lyric part. So you're trying to follow, the actual music itself, and you're having to jump between all these different gameplay input styles. So it's like on the scale of complexity, I think that I always find in rhythm games myself, like with DDR, I need to play on a higher level difficulty than the normal, and I can't play on easy because when there's not enough going on, I'm just waiting, and then it's hard to keep the timing. It's about moving right from one thing to the next thing that makes it you get into that zone where you can follow it. And I feel like Gitaroo Man has enough going on screen that you want to get better at hitting those inputs, and it feels good when you do because you kind of do get into that zone. But no matter how much time I spent with PaRappa the Rapper, I don't feel like I would feel oh man, I just killed it.
Yeah,
as PaRappa.
Good point. And that's really why I think Gitaroo Man is my number 1 as well, because I was in the game, and even when we were finished, we're we should just keep playing this.
Yeah.
And forgo the other 2 games.
Or you said we should have played it last.
Yeah, or
we could have
again.
the high off of it.
Yeah, dude, I mean, we're still kind of high off of it, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the number 1 out of these 3 specifically because of that.
And I think that, until Guitar Hero and stuff like that came out, that had a whole lot going on. You're trying to do all these different things. You're clacking, you're whammy barring, you're doing all the different buttons, multiple buttons. The more in tune you feel with the complexity of the music, I think that it really has that effect of making you get in that zone and making it way more enjoyable. Definitely no question. Gitaroo Man has to be our number 1.
Yeah. I think next is PaRappa the Rapper. If you were to do a direct comparison between Space Channel 5 and that one, I think it does have a better rhythm and flow to it compared to Space Channel 5. The inputs are there, which is nice, and you're able to actually follow a rhythm, and there's just a fun aspect about it as you're playing with like the funky characters and the stupid crazy story of like 100 years worth of noodles, and like it's a wholesome type of game. Like, it's just fun. It's quirky. It's interesting. Space Channel 5 doesn't do that for me. Like, Space Channel 5 just almost feels like, honestly scripted in a sense, because it was, we need you to go out into market and create a game. It didn't matter
what you did.
Yeah.
It didn't affect anything except for the rating and like the people following you.
But like, the whole purpose of that game was we want to make money by tailoring it to women. And then he's like, okay, cool, but I want to make it a little more broad, so I'm going to get to tailor both men and women. And it just didn't hit. Like, it's got good reviews, which is so interesting. Maybe it gets better as you progress, but I just didn't find it to be as fun. Even though PaRappa the Rapper is not my favorite rhythm game, I feel that the quirky story, it picks up enough for it to be fun. Yeah. And you want to continue playing because of that. Whereas Space Channel 5, I just didn't get that. And we played all of these in equal amount of time. Right? It's not like we played through the entirety of all these games. We just don't have time for that right now. But playing the same amount of time for each of these games, I totally would rather continue PaRappa the Rapper over Space Channel 5.
Yeah, I think that, how do I say this? The best part about Space Channel 5 is that, they tried to do something different. But, I mean, it just didn't execute. And, there might be a decent idea hidden in there somewhere. But, my God, man, it's 2 discs. And I don't know what they did with it. Like, what about this game reads that there's 2 discs?
And it was a Dreamcast game initially, right? So, like, I mean, it's not Shenmue. Like, why do we have multiple discs for this game? It's just kind of, and somebody out there is going to yell at us like, oh, well, disc number 2 is like multiplayer and all this other stuff, which is probably true. That probably is what it is.
Gosh, could you imagine if I had to make a set of inputs for you to follow in rhythm? God, what a fun game that would be.
Yeah, it'd be so stupid. Like,
Simon Says Battleship.
Yeah, right. Like that. I just don't think that would be fun at all. Like, you have maybe 10 inputs you have to do max. Like, that's just not fun. I don't know why anybody would find that to be interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, today's tier, we had some high highs, some middles, and some low lows. I think
low.
Everything was well represented here. Rhythm games are fun. If you like rhythm games, tell us your favorite rhythm games. One of mine is Voice that we played way early on the show.
It was actually, I think, our first review. It was like episode 2 or something that you and I did. No, not episode 2. I don't remember when. It's like episode 11 or 12 because different hosts with me back then. Yeah, but I mean, rhythm games are fun. I definitely enjoy them. So our tier here is, of course, number 1 with the gold cup from Mario Kart is going to be Gitaroo Man, followed by PaRappa the Rapper with his little silver cup. And then our bronze cup is going to go over to Space Channel 5 with Ooh La La. So definitely look at these games. Check them out. Of course, subscribe to our podcast. Give us a shout out on social media. We always like talking to people. And we will catch you on our next episode. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.